Today, I will share a story about a modern CEO who was forced to become the wife of a god of desire. Qi Wang was the youngest ruler of the K Group. At only 27, he held the lifeline of a commercial empire and was widely recognized as the most eligible bachelor in high society. In a corner of the banquet, rumors of his engagement to the Lin family's daughter were buzzing. Everyone envied his immense wealth and status, but no one knew that this glory at the peak had long attracted hidden covetousness and murderous intent. Amid the noise, a delicately made-up woman was rushing toward Qi Wang despite the bodyguard's attempts to stop her, repeatedly shouting that she was his fiancée. The bodyguards blocked her expressionlessly, their tone polite yet distant. "Apologies, young master has misophonia and does not allow strangers near him." Those words ignited the woman's fury. She screamed insults at the bodyguards, spewing one vulgar remark after another. A cold male voice cut through the chaos, and the bodyguards bowed and stepped aside. Qi Wang stood not far away, dressed in an immaculate custom-tailored suit, a pair of white silk gloves on his fingers. His gaze toward the woman held not a trace of warmth. The woman immediately put on a wronged expression, covered her stomach, and announced loudly to the surrounding guests, "Qi Wang, how can you be so heartless? I'm carrying your child, you're going to be a father." That single remark detonated the entire venue. Whispering gazes locked onto him in an instant. The woman had calculated that Qi Wang valued his reputation, certain he would not publicly lose face. If she could solidify this scandal, the Qi family fortune and control of the Qi group would eventually fall into her hands. But she had miscalculated Qi Wang's bottom line. Qi Wang only sneered inwardly. He was a celibate man who kept himself pure. Where on earth would he get a child? He stepped forward slowly. His gloved hand suddenly clamped the woman's jaw, the force so great that tears immediately sprung to her eyes, leaving her unable to struggle. His voice dropped to a low growl, icy with every word, audible only to the two of them. "You drugged me to knock me out, faked a sexual encounter, then used a fake pregnancy to force me into a marriage and seize the Qi family assets. Quite the clever scheme." The woman's face drained of color in an instant. She never imagined her flawless plan had been seen through by Qi Wang from the very start. She had laced his wine with a drug that he had not taken a single sip of. The so-called night spent together was nothing but a false hope he had left for her as part of his counterplan. With her plot exposed publicly, the woman watched Qi Wang's retreating figure toward the terrace. An overwhelming resentment and hatred consumed her reason. Staring at his back as he walked to the terrace, a mad thought surged. If she could not have him, she would make him disappear completely. She charged over like a lunatic and pushed Qi Wang with all her might over the terrace railing. The expected sensation of falling never came. Qi Wang only felt a blinding white light burst before his eyes, his body tugged by an invisible force into an endless void. The last thing he saw was the woman's twisted, terrified face. When he opened his eyes again, blazing holy light made him squint. Inside a solemn temple, a group of white-robed priests surrounded him, their eyes filled with fanaticism and reverence, chanting "Savior" over and over. Qi Wang pinched himself. The sharp pain told him this was not a dream, nor some cheesy TV drama scene. He had truly traveled through time and space. After the absurd disbelief faded, a hint of relief surfaced in his heart. Without this sudden transmigration, he would be a corpse beneath the terrace by now. The leading priest was Claire, the high priest of this holy land. He explained in a flurry of gestures that the holy land of this continent was on the brink of extinction. Magic power had dried up for 10 long years, and not a single newborn had been born in a decade. If things continued this way, the entire race would perish. An ancient oracle foretold they would summon a savior from another world, the only one who could awaken the power of rebirth and save the continent. Qi Wang frowned deeply, assuming this was some otherworldly hero saving the world plot, already mentally preparing to wield a sword and slay a demon king. That was until Claire mysteriously pulled out a glazed bottle containing glowing liquid, holding it out like a treasure. "Great savior, the demon god Eros is indeed all-powerful, but if you drink this ancestral potion we've guarded for generations, You will surely defeat him." Claire spoke with full confidence, but Qi Wang broke into a cold sweat. His gaze was glued to Claire's hand gripping the bottle directly. His misophobia screamed violently at this moment. Thoughts of saving the world and defeating the demon god vanished entirely. He stepped back instinctively, desperate to stay far away from this contaminated potion. Claire was stunned instantly, his puppy eyes filled with grievance and confusion, utterly unable to understand why the savior would reject this chance to save the world. Claire gathered all the people of the Holy Land, kneeling before him in unison, staring at him with bright puppy eyes, begging and coaxing, repeating over and over that only you can save us and drink the potion, defeat the demon god, and you can return home. Qi Wang's inner complaints had piled into a mountain. His misophobia made him resist fiercely, yet looking at the kneeling crowd and Claire's near-teary expression, he finally softened. He took the glazed bottle, thinking only one thing: only by drinking it can I defeat the demon god and return to my world. I can do this. He pinched his nose and chugged it down, tossing the empty bottle back to Claire, wiped his mouth, his gaze firm, his tone carrying the decisive sharpness of a business tycoon. I've drunk it up. Take me to the demon god now. The journey to the demon god's temple was made in a luxurious palanquin. He had been dressed in a custom-made savior gown from the Holy Land, silk clinging to his body, off-the-shoulder design studded with tiny gems, a slit running almost to his waist, unbearably sensual. Staring at his outfit, Qi Wang finally snapped, roaring at Claire beside him. Can anyone tell me why the savior's suit looks so sexy like this? Claire only laughed it off, repeatedly telling the bearers to walk steadily, never jostle the savior, and make sure he stayed in a good mood the entire trip. Inside the palanquin, Qi Wang felt his body growing hotter and hotter. His cheeks flushed uncontrollably, fine cold sweat breaking out on his forehead. He held his head and panted, assuming the otherworldly climate was simply sweltering, completely unaware that the so-called battle potion had already quietly taken effect in his body. The demon god's temple was grander than Qi Wang imagined, yet also eerily silent. Lifting the hem of his gown, he stepped inside and immediately spotted a figure reclining on the high platform. The man had silver hair and golden eyes, his features breathtakingly beautiful to the point of being demonic, surrounded by a faint golden aura, sitting motionless like a flawless statue of a heavenly god. Qi Wang was stunned by that face, his breath catching for a moment. All the lines he had prepared to defeat the demon god stuck in his throat. 2 seconds later, he snapped back to his senses, comforting himself stubbornly inwardly. So what? I'm better looking than him. With all the priests bowing respectfully to the figure on the platform, their voices echoing throughout the temple, "Great demon god Eros, we present to you a bride from another world, as you commanded. May the divine child be born soon, and may the power of rebirth awaken in the continent." Bride? Divine child? Qi Wang's mind went blank, as if thunder had struck directly above his head. All the lies about defeating the demon god and saving the world crumbled completely in that instant, his worldview collapsing. He finally understood. From being summoned here, being tricked into drinking the potion, changing into this sensual gown, to being respectfully escorted to the temple, it had all been a trap targeting him from start to finish. What savior? What defeating the demon god? He was nothing more than a bride prepared for the demon god, meant to bear his children. What bride? I'm a man, a man. Qi Wang flew into a rage on the spot, roaring to emphasize his male identity, blood rushing to his head. Claire scrambled to his feet to stop him, comforting him with an innocent look. Savior, please calm down. The Holy Land has many ways for men to conceive. Your lactation value is a once-in-a-millennium 9999. Only you can bear the divine child and save the world. That remark only enraged Qi Wang further. He was about to retort again when a deep, lazy male voice suddenly came from the high platform, halting all his movements. You're my bride? How tiny. Qi Wang snapped his head up. The motionless statue had stood up at some point. Golden eyes swept down at him, filled with casual amusement and sharp, all-seeing insight. This was no statue, it was the demon god himself, the god of lust, Eros. Qi Wang's heart clenched sharply, cold sweat breaking out on his back. His previous arrogance vanished almost entirely, leaving only anger at being deceived and helpless panic. And I'm gonna be his bride? The thought had barely formed when Eros flashed forward, appearing before him in an instant. The man leaned down slightly, his nose nearly touching Qi Wang's forehead, taking a gentle whiff, a playful smile tugging at his lips. I didn't expect my bride to be so proactive. You even drank the love dew in advance for me. Qi Wang's cheeks were already flushed from the potion. Now he grew even more flustered and angry. He raised a hand to push him away, but his hand trembled uncontrollably. I told you I don't know what you're talking ab. He never finished the sentence. He remembered the ancestral potion he had chugged down. It had been a trap from the very beginning. His brows knitted fiercely, his jaw clenched so tight his teeth gritted, veins bulging on his forehead. Yet the flush on his cheeks lingered, his eyes burning with unwillingness and regret. But this image of him wanting to lash out but being powerless, throwing a fit on the spot, looked incredibly tempting in Eros's eyes. Eros chuckled softly, lifting him entirely into the palm of his hand, his fingertip casually resting against his chin, amusement deepening in his gaze. You didn't drink it willingly? The love dew won't work unless you drink it voluntarily. Qi Wang turned his face away, his voice full of grievance and defense, yet refusing to show weakness. I drank it willingly, all right, but I didn't know what it's for. He only wanted to clear himself of the suspicion of initiating advances, not noticing that Eros's fingertips had already touched his chest. It feels so strange when he touched my chest. Unbidden private thoughts surfaced. Qi Wang stiffened all over, an unfamiliar emotion spreading from the point of contact, throwing his breathing into disarray. Eros watched his flustered, blushing expression and laughed lowly, his tone holding undeniable certainty. Looks like it's already kicked in. There's no turning back. At those words, the golden aura around Eros flared brightly. Qi Wang felt his feet leave the ground, plummeting through the air. Weightlessness overwhelmed him. He closed his eyes instinctively, only to fall into a broad, warm embrace the next second. Eros held him securely in a dominant yet doting princess carry, a smile playing on his lips as he looked down at the startled man in his arms. You got scared just like that? Qi Wang stared blankly at the handsome face so close, his cheeks flushed, his gaze dazed. Just recovering from the panic of falling, he was now trapped in this ambiguous embrace. What shocked him even more was that the enormous demon god from moments ago had shrunk to a normal human size, staring down at him with amusement. My bride, you're so adorable. Adorable? Qi Wang exploded on the spot. A business tycoon who dominated the corporate world was being called adorable. Grievance, anger, and embarrassment from being teased all along erupted completely at this moment. He locked his arm around Eros's throat, mimicking his tone and sneering through gritted teeth. You are adorable. Your whole family is adorable. He thought that without his size advantage, Eros was no longer unbeatable. He would fight back with his own strength and break free from this absurd fate. I won't marry you. I can stop you from destroying the world by defeating you. He refused to sacrifice himself in exchange for so-called peace. He would be a hero, not a bride to be manipulated. But his attack was easily neutralized the next second. Eros spun around and stepped behind him in an instant, holding him tightly in a back hug, trapping him completely in his arms with no room to move. His breath brushed against Qi Wang's ear, his tone calm yet playful, as if watching a child's tantrum. Did you misunderstand something? Qi Wang tensed up, his brows knitted tightly, struggling with all his might yet unable to break free from the seemingly loose hold. The flush on his cheeks deepened, his eyes filled with unwillingness and panic as he roared furiously. Damn it, he's still so powerful. Ooh, let go of me. No can do. Eros's fingertip gently brushed his lips, his tone gentle yet holding an unrefusable dominance, clearly declaring his fate. He could not escape. He finally began explaining the truth behind the trap to his bristling bride. The Holy Land, the core of the Light faction, has been drained of magic power for a decade. Not a single newborn has been born across the entire continent in 10 years. This is not a sign of destruction, it is the end of extinction, yet striking straight to Qi Wang's heart. And the only way to survive is to awaken the power of rebirth together with me, Eros, the god of lust. Wait! Qi Wang trembled all over, finally grasping the nature of this farce. The way to save the world is to raise the birth rate, but what does this have to do with me? He never imagined that the epic hero saving the world script he had imagined centered on increasing the birth rate. A grand narrative of saving the world had reduced him to nothing more than a breeding tool. His anger and resistance were fundamentally a rebellion against his ignored free will and a forcibly imposed fate. But his protests received no response from Eros. The man acted as if he had not heard his shouts, continuing his affectionate touches, his breath drawing closer. What terrified him even more was a sudden stabbing pain in his back, as if something was about to tear through his skin. My back is filled with sharp pain like being cut by a knife. What's happening? He trembled in agony, cold sweat mixing with heat rolling down his forehead, his consciousness tugging between clarity and haze. Just so you know, the love dew isn't easy to be detoxified. You can't do it all by yourself. Eros's voice sounded in his ear, carrying a faint gravity, laying bare his desperate situation directly. But I've got a way to help you. Qi Wang gritted his teeth, torn between his dignity of refusing intimate contact and his instinct to survive. You disagree? If you keep stalling, you're gonna die because of ID. Eros's words shattered his last glimmer of luck. The potion's effects were irreversible. No one but him could cure it. If he continued to resist, he would be tortured to death by the drug. At that moment, the skin on Qi Wang's back burned suddenly. Mysterious golden tattoos spread slowly along his spine, glowing faintly under the light. Eros's gaze darkened, knowing he could wait no longer. He tilted Qi Wang's face up and kissed him. A forceful, unrefusable kiss, laced with comfort, swept away all of Qi Wang's senses. The man in his arms struggled instinctively, yet the moment he touched Eros's breath, the burning heat throughout his body found an outlet, and even the stabbing pain eased greatly. Before Qi Wang's consciousness sank completely, he only heard Eros murmur close to his ear, in a deep voice, word by word, "My bride, welcome to my world."